Item 6.3, approval of the revised Board of Education policy 6146, graduation requirements. Dr. Conway?
Thank you, and I know that three of the members of the policy committee are present here, so they may wish to take over this discussion. The policy committee reviewed the graduation requirements policy for a couple of different changes. One was for the class of 2017, which would be our new incoming freshmen, so the current 8th graders, that they would be required to have 4 years of mathematics as opposed to 3. This is in line with the high school reform that the state of Connecticut was undertaking. I will tell you that that is the whole reform requirements, such as end-of-year assessments and all of those things, are not being implemented the way it had been intended several years ago across the state. And so this is a good thing to require our students to have 4 years of mathematics, and is recommended by the high school, the administration, and the guidance department. And so that would be one change. The policy and the head of guidance was at our policy committee meeting, also discussed adding 1 year of world language. And this is an example of an area where the high school reform is not going as quickly as originally planned. That was the original plan, to move to 2 years of world language. The board moved to 1 year a couple of years ago. And so the committee is asking the full board to consider 2 years of a world language as a graduation requirement. Again, that would be for our incoming freshman class. I will tell you that both of those requirements would require a full-time teacher, a full-time mathematics teacher, and a full-time world language teacher. Just under 50% of our students take 4 years of mathematics, and just under 50% of our students take 2 years of a world language. And so doing the math, it is a full-time teacher, about approximately 125 students a year is what that teacher would be teaching, and so we think we can do it with that. In addition, you can see the update for 40 hours of community service for both the current class and the other. It just wasn't listed there. This was something that had been discussed before and was part of the policy, but it wasn't listed in the list of requirements for graduation. So there's an amendment for the class of 2016, the current freshman class, as well as the class of 2017. Additionally, just to finish all of this, would be on the last page of the policy that you have. And after the board's conversation 2 weeks ago with Mrs. Vernon, I think Mrs. Vernon stepped in a little while ago, there she is, that our students, very few of our students had met the 40 hours. And her requests, and certainly in those of administration, were not to reduce 40 hours, but to add some flexibility to the achievement of these 40 hours. And so a minimum of 10 hours towards the 40 had to be completed by the end of each year. So if in freshman year you completed 10, then fine, you're on to sophomore year. If in freshman year you completed 20, then sophomore year you could still move on even if you hadn't achieved another 10. So even if in freshman year you achieved all 40 hours, then you wouldn't have to have any more hours after that. And that's a departure from what was discussed earlier. So I think that took care of, that was also allowing students to earn credit in the summer. So they could work at Park and Rec, work on the bookmobile, Girl Scout or Boy Scout camp, be a volunteer. I think the biggest issue is, from what Mrs. Vernon said, is, especially for freshmen and sophomore, is adult supervision. And so if our students are going out before they're 16 and they're going to be volunteering, most people want an adult with them to supervise them. And so that was an issue. But there are some things that they can do, certainly. So those were the changes that were proposed. And Mrs. Fisher was there, Mr. Kemp is the chair of that committee. I certainly would ask them to speak, and Ms. Ard is also a member of that committee, so I might want to add.
Mrs. Fisher?
Well, first I'll put a motion on the floor that we approve the revised Board of Education Policy 6146, graduation requirements.
That's a motion. Do I have a second on that motion? Mr. Kemp, a motion and a second. And did you wish to speak to that motion?
Well, no, I
Or add it?
no, I just wanted to put it on so we can have discussion.
Mrs. Arnold?
I just want to be sure I understand. So a student could do 40 hours some summer and in 1 year and complete their requirement for community service. Isn't that disagreeing with our original concept, which was regular community service, learning to give back to the community, not simply doing 40 hours and getting it over with, but it was the idea of carrying it on year to year to year. I don't agree with the concept of doing it whenever you want to do it and be done with it. Number two, I think that there's still time for students to get 10 hours done. And I would fault the administration for letting it go until almost April before they informed us that there was an issue with students getting hours done, number one. Number two, I think there are plenty of ways for students to get hours completed. When I suggested it at the high school alone, there was some disagreement, but I just heard two students say it's no big deal. It's easy to get 10 hours of time. I think for us to dummy down on this sends the wrong message, and I can't support that. I just can't. Our intention was to teach people, students, to incorporate community service into their way of life, not to just do 40 hours and get it out of the way.
Mr. Percy?
I agree with Ms. Arnold over there. But the other two things I want to add to it is you fail a English class, whatever, you have the chance to make it up. There's nothing in this policy about making up the hours, and during our last meeting, the word retention was thrown around quite a bit. So if they don't complete their 10 hours as a freshman, are they retained as a freshman?
That was part of the, that they need a minimum of 10 hours of community service in order to be promoted to the next grade.
But it says nothing in here about how to make it up. I mean, is it just an assumption that they can make it up their sophomore year?
Correct, and as soon as they get those 10 hours, then they would be promoted if everything else, they had passed everything else.
I mean, I voted against this originally, not in concept. I like the concept of community service. I just don't think we went about it the right way, implementing it, having a point person that was really going to take it over at the high school is something I think should have been done. And I don't know if that was done. I don't know if that's our fault. We didn't. I don't know, but I don't like dumbing down the policy either. When I first opened my packet and I saw 4 hours, I get that, but I hit the ceiling. No. But anyway, I can't support this either. Thank you.
Mrs. Bush?
Yes, I also don't want the impact of this to be, as we say, dummy down. I feel that at the community conversation, there was a large amount of students wanting to make their voice known. The concept of volunteerism in the community came up, and all these students were extremely active, and they don't have to be. They were sophomores, juniors, seniors. They're doing it without a requirement. So I'm seeing that they will get into the swing of it. I would like to see that the students have the summer ability. Like you said, the bookmobile is a wonderful opportunity to volunteer. Things like that. And I would like to maybe just extend it through the summer so that, and that's it. I would like to see the 10 hours still be there as a hard, a number as your freshman year. I don't like to see that. And I agree with Sarn that I think it should be a little bit every year. I agree that we don't need to have 40 hours done freshman year, or put it off till your senior year, 40 hours, bang, zoom, you're done. I'd like to see it in smaller increments. So,
Ms. Fisher?
Well, I disagree that it's being dummied down. It's just being presented in a different format. They still have to do 40 hours. They're just being given a little more flexibility as to when they do 40 hours. Now, whether you want them to have it every year, that's your decision. But they still have to, if they haven't done, I don't expect that many students will do 40 hours in 1 year. And maybe some will. But they still do have to do 10 a year if they haven't completed the requirement. And they do have the 7 months to do it in. That is, the school year language was taken out. So,
Mr. Kemp, Dennis?
Well, I'd like to see us get this policy done, first of all. I mean, let's just put it in place. I'm glad there's so much feedback from the public and amongst ourselves about it, and from the students. It's all a good thing. I would say we're trying to smarten up, not dumb down, okay? The idea of trying to get some participation throughout the 4 years, I think, is a good idea, not just all at once, but it's a good problem to have if we're going to have some students that are going to get the 40 hours. I mean, that student is going to keep doing, if they're doing 40, they're going to do 40 again and again. And I'm going to share something with you that I haven't put into this policy, at least not yet. I have seen elsewhere that after the 40 is done, then in 40-hour increments, one can earn a quarter credit. So this is just the start. We're not awarding credits yet for this, but we have 3.75 elective credits that we do provide. So I wanted, the committee anyway, wanted this, or most of the committee, because some weren't here the other day. This is a start, so we want to get 40. And then it's up to us if we want to award credit, let's say 40 hours at a time, all the way up to a full credit. So you could do 160 hours and conceivably get 1 full credit in 40-hour increments of a quarter. Haven't talked about that yet. So I'd like to get this base policy in place, if you will, and we can build on it from there based on more conversations, I think. So we haven't backed off the 40. It's graduation requirement. We're just, I think what we're going to allow is some flexibility in the summertime, because if it's June and the student hasn't done the 10, they have time to get it done in the summer and then still become a sophomore. And the student said 10 is no big deal. I don't think it is. Hope not. That's my pitch for the passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Ms. Sark, you have the floor.
If there's an issue with opportunity, assessment, recording it, keeping track of it all, I don't see that the summer is going to be any better for kids, because there isn't going to be an opportunity with anybody in the school to document that. I'm back to the kids are in school 10 months, it's an hour a month. I don't think that this, and I don't think, although I'm not disagreeing with Bookmobile and all, I don't think that's the only opportunity. Students can do things an hour a month during the year. How are they going to be held accountable for the summertime hours? If the administrators couldn't handle school hours and kids are so far behind, how are they going to assess summer hours if the kids did? What is going to be in place to make sure that those hours were legitimate and were actually done? So I think keeping it to the school year is very important, because first of all, they can be accountable, the hours can be documented by people at the high school or whatever, and it's an hour a month. I mean, I just don't see how this is a big deal. If the freshman class didn't take it seriously, then that's not their fault. That's our fault, or administration's fault, for not making them understand that this is real and it's important.